What's going on, everybody? Liam O'Reilly, Vermont economic realtor with Jerry Riley Real Estate. I hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to be talking about the Vermont housing crisis. For those of you who don't know, I live here in Vermont. I work here in Vermont as a realtor. And in the past, I've covered some of the issues that are going on with the Vermont housing market. And one of those big issues is the lack of supply. Really, across the country, there's a housing shortage, but specifically here in Vermont, there just aren't many homes for sale. And a big part of that has to do with how difficult it is to develop properties around here in Vermont. So I wanted to cover a couple different things in this video. The first is going to be the old Pizza Hut in South Burlington. Those of you who live around the area have seen that old Pizza Hut. The owners of that and a gas station and another lot around that Pizza Hut are hoping to develop it into a 30-unit residential building or living space, residential properties, I believe apartments, and then have a Chase Bank below it. But it's hit some snags. So let's get into that first. We'll talk about that right away. So vacant Pizza Hut redevelopment hits snag in South Burlington, and I think obviously, look, they're proposing 30 units in this development, and it's not going to 30 units isn't going to fix Vermont's housing problem, but it's a good example that shows how unfriendly Vermont is to developers, and I think why we have such a limited inventory here in Vermont. And it's understandable, right? People who live here in Vermont, you want to keep Vermont the way it is. You like Vermont because of how natural it is. I love Vermont for that reason, especially this time of year with the foliage. It's a beautiful time of year, and Vermont's a beautiful state. But at the same time, if we don't have enough housing for everybody, then it's making things very difficult on the less fortunate, those who aren't homeowners yet, the poor and middle class, people who don't have a ton of money to spend on rent. If we don't have enough housing for these people, then they're forced to move out of state. So anyway, let's get into this article. So here's the Pizza Hut. If you have been around South Burlington, if you've been on Shelburne Road, I'm sure you've seen this Pizza Hut. It's clearly was a Pizza Hut. It's been vacant since 2011 right here. While the building's red roof is still recognizable, the shuttered former pizza joint has since it's closed in 2011 been masked in graffiti and overgrown shrubbery. So it's really just an eyesore on the community, and it's pretty prime real estate. So when we look at this article and we see what the concerns are, to me it seems like really minuscule items when you think about where the overall housing market is, with how competitive it is, and how much of a need we have for housing. So we continue to have concerns about the bank's drive-in and calculation of inclusionary units. So basically what's going on, and we can read it here, but I'll summarize it up. The South Burlington has a mandatory of 15% of inclusionary units with any new project that comes to market. Now, with this unit, they want to build 30 units, 30 residential units on these three lots. But with this development, the town only allows for a certain number of units. So let's see. So that's 10 more units than the city's base zoning density unit maximum. So with 7 affordable units. So they wanted to build, basically city zoning allows for 20 units. They want to build 30 and have 7 units be affordable. The city of South Burlington says that you need to have, or they're requesting that 10 of those units need to be affordable housing units, which is great. I mean, it is great to have affordable housing and have more affordable housing with this project. But the thing is that really cuts into the developer's overhead, cuts into the profit that they're making, and makes it harder for them to develop this property without losing money, because these affordable units are, they're not at market rent. And so it's difficult, or they're not at market prices, so it's difficult to either rent them or sell them in a way that that's profitable or even break even for the developer. So what it's doing, while I'm sure the city council has great intentions, it's disincentivizing the developer and other developers from bringing new properties and bringing new housing to the market. So that's one of the issues. And then the other one is the drive up ATM on the property, which members say it's not permitted under zoning regulations. This one, kind of puzzles me, to be honest, just because Look, it's a drive-up ATM. If there's going to be a bank there, why wouldn't you have a drive-up ATM? It's on Shelburne Road. There's a key bank right down the road that has a drive-up ATM. I'm not sure why the drive-up ATM, which they say right here. So this is the board commenting on it. Basically, the developer says here, it looks horrendous, and I really like to see what the board thinks is the best use for this site because there's been so much pushback over the number of inclusionary units versus the 10 versus 7 and this drive up ATM. And they said here, this is somebody from the board, would not disagree with you that the appearance of the area currently is horrendous, as you say. However, the board has given a great deal of feedback, and we've spent a lot of time discussing our concerns about things such as inclusionary units, the calculation of that, and in particular, the drive-up ATM. It's not our responsibility to suggest what we think should be a good plan. So, look, at the end of the day, I think with this particular product, it outlines some of the issues that stop housing from being built here in Vermont and have contributed to the overall housing crisis and the homelessness around Vermont. When we're talking about a difference between 7 units versus 10 units, especially if the city's minimum requirement is 15% of overall housing units, I, I mean, if those 3 units, those 3 extra units, and that drive-in ATM, that drive-up ATM is going to prevent this project from taking place, then I I mean, wouldn't the city council members, wouldn't the board members rather have 7 inclusionary units instead of 0 inclusionary units, especially if 7 is abiding by the minimum requirements of their city? And wouldn't they rather have the drive-up ATM than not have these housing units that are so desperately needed around town? And when we look at what's going on with housing, so I'm going to go over and kind of change topics just to give us some perspective into how bad the housing crisis is. So this is an article from Vermont Public Radio talking about Home Share Vermont, which is a company that offers home sharing services to people who need them across the country or across Vermont. So basically, if you can't afford rent and you need a roommate, something like that, this company helps connect you to a roommate or somebody to live with, and help you find housing. So what this person says here, Kirby Dunn, right here, sort of shockingly, she started this in 2000. We thought it was a housing crisis in 2000, and I think unfortunately it's only gotten worse. So really, the housing crisis has deteriorated from when this person who started this company in order to help Vermont's housing crisis started it 23 years ago. So, and here's one of the things that I really wanted to point out in this article is when she's speculating, this is her speculating about what we can do to fix the market. And now, to be fair, she says she doesn't really know exactly how to fix the housing crisis here in Vermont. But listen to what she says right here. And this is her opinion. It's not necessarily scientific fact that this would help, but right here, one of the things that's happened is we've built bigger and bigger houses, and there's fewer and fewer people living in them. As you know, as a nation, for the first time in human history, the majority of households are 1 or 2 person households. So we're not the extended family living situation that we used to be. So our houses have gotten bigger, and there's fewer people living in them. Now, with again going back to that South Burlington project, with this project that was proposed in South Burlington, you would think that would be helping part of the solution, where we can keep the majority of Vermont greener. We can get rid of this eyesore that isn't benefiting the community at all. It's literally a building that's just rotting away back to the earth, and we can turn that into useful space. We can turn that into housing for a community that so desperately needs housing. We can add a bank that would benefit the community, and who cares if there's a drive-up ATM? I mean, it's on Shelburne Road. It's a commercial street. So anyway, that's just my opinion about the whole project. I think we desperately need housing. Now, the last thing I'm going to finish with is we're going to take a look at a tweet by Gary Winslet. I had Gary on the YouTube channel a little while ago. He is a professor out of Middlebury. And he has this tweet here, February 4th. He also covered this article that I'm mentioning in a tweet too. But this is what he says regarding homelessness. 5 of the states most homeless are 5 of the 7 states with the most onerous land use regulations, i.e. the ones that make it the hardest to build new housing. Number 1, most homeless per 100,000 people. Number 1 is California. Number 2 is Vermont. and then you see Oregon, Hawaii, New York, and the ranking and land use freedom is over there on the right. So I guess what he's arguing by that tweet is that as we restrict the uses of land, as we restrict development around our community and prevent developments like this 30-unit complex in a worn down lot in South Burlington, what we're doing is we're preventing housing from being built, and we're making it harder for people to find housing that they need, which is increasing the homelessness around the area. And I think that's something that certainly Vermont has seen over the past few years is an increase in homelessness. I think due, at least in part, to the housing problem, the housing crisis. And a way to start fixing that housing crisis is to, maybe look at some of these lots that aren't being used properly, like this Pizza Hut, and see how we can turn it into useful space that's going to benefit the community, as opposed to being an eyesore, as opposed to just rotting away and not benefiting anybody. So anyway, Liam O'Reilly, Vermont Economic Realtor. I hope you got something out of this video. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. I love hearing from you folks. I love hearing your opinion. Feel free to message me if you're looking to buy or sell a home here in Vermont. All of my contact information is in the description. Or if you're looking somewhere else in the country, I'd be happy to find somebody who can work with you there as well. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.